Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to go through a soil classification exercise using the USCS chart. This file is the classification exercise. Page 1 is the chart that we will fill in. Page 2 are the directions. Page 3 is a chart that we're going to need to look at the very end to determine the actual classification. And first, we're going to start with looking at the given information. This is a sample of data that we'll collect in a soil experiment. So we'll take this data and fill it in the appropriate parts of the USCS chart. I have another file I'm going to open here that has a blank version of the chart that we'll fill in. Okay? So we'll be bouncing back and forth here. Now we're going to take the gravel mass, this 42.2, and the coarse sand, 51.4, and add them together and put them in a particular location. And that sum is 93.6. Okay, the medium sand, 32.3, is added with the fine sand, 30.8, and placed here. That number is 63.1. Then we're going to put the total, and that's going to be 156.7. Now we need to put the percentage here. We can add the percentage from the chart. If you take a look at the chart, you'll see that we have 26.9 and 32.8, or we can actually calculate it using the numbers on this chart, okay? But we're going to go ahead and just add those numbers together, 59.7. From here, we can classify whether it's coarse or fine. If it's over 50%, it's coarse. If it's under 50%, it's fine. Since ours is over 50, we're going to go ahead and type in coarse here. Next, we're going to move down a section to determine whether it's gravel or sand. The 5 sieve has sand, which is 42.2, and that goes right here. And then what we're going to do is add all the others together. So we're going to take a look at these numbers here. These others here, we're going to add them together. The 51.4, the 32.3, and the 30.8, we're going to add those together and put that sum here. That sum is 114.5. Okay? Now the total, which we already have, is going to go here. We already have that from above. We can just copy that down. Okay? Now we have to calculate the percent and put that here. We're going to divide the 114.5 divided by the 156.7. That's going to give us 73.1% if you do the math. Okay? Since the sand is greater than the gravel, we're going to write sand here. Now for this next section, we need to use the wash test results to tell if the soil is clean or dirty. So we'll go over here and we'll scroll down to the wash test. We take the mass of our sand, which is 30.97, and we're going to place that here. The silt and clay, which was dissolved from the wash test itself, was 1.53. So we are going to place that here. Okay. The total mass, which we already have, if you go back to the table again, you'll see that we have 32.5. And we're going to put that here. That helps us with calculating percentages. So we're going to go ahead and calculate the percent, and that should have already been calculated. 4.7%. So there's no new math here. We're going to go ahead and just write that down. Now we analyze our sample to see if it is clean or dirty. Since the percent is less than 5, it's going to be clean. So we're going to type in the word clean here. For the next row, we need to look at the distribution of the sample through the sieve test. So scroll back up here. We'll look at these numbers. Okay. We see how close these are together. My recommendation is take the highest and the lowest. So we have 30.8 and we have 51.4. And if they are within 10% of the total, then we can say that it is well graded. Okay. Now here our sample size is 156.7. So if we simplify that, about 15 grams is 10%. But since the difference between our highest and lowest is over 20, we're going to say that is not well graded. So we'll go here and we'll say no. Now, the remaining rows in our table here are going to be determined from our qualitative tests. So if I go back to my sheet here, okay, for dilatancy, our data says quick and distinct. So we can go back and write fast in this cell. For dry strength, it says easily broken, so we are going to write slight here. And finally, for toughness, it says weak, spongy thread. So what we are going to do here is we are going to say weak. Now that our USCS chart is complete, we can determine the classification from the other chart. So we'll go back here and we'll scroll back up to this set here. This is what we're going to use to determine the classification. Okay? Now to use this chart, we are going to start from the left and move to the right. So the first question we're going to ask ourselves is, do we have a coarse thread or do we have a fine thread? Okay, if we go back to our chart, we can see that we have a coarse thread. So that means we are going to stay in this section. We can ignore the bottom half of that chart. Now we need to ask ourselves, do we have gravel or sand? Here it says we have sand. So we are going to be staying in these two rows. Okay. The next question we need to ask, is it clean or is it dirty? We go to our chart and we can see that it is clean. So that means it's either going to be SW or SP. Okay. Now, for this last little section here, the SWSP, this is where the qualitative and the distribution comes in handy for us down here. Okay, SP, if we look at this chart, it says poorly graded, and SW says well graded. Now, since we have a poorly graded sample, so no, it's poorly graded, we're going to go ahead and write SP in that chart, and that is our final classification. Now, going back to that other chart, if for some reason we have to work in the fine grained soils down the bottom, we'll have to please note that it does not say clean or dirty here. But what we'll have to do is pay attention to the liquid limit numbers. Go back here, we'll see the liquid limit numbers are right here. Here the liquid limit is below 50, here is above 50. So we might be good to write that also here in this cell, just so we know. And then again, once we determine the rows from here, it'll be good for us to look at the classifications, use our qualitative results to determine. So hopefully that helps you with the classification portion. Our example is finished, so that'll prepare you for doing the classification on your sample.